Hello, everybody. This is Mike History 2, and this is going to be the history of Australia, Part 4. So, in 1849, Australia began to experience a population boom after Edward Hargreaves, a gold prospector, discovered 5 specks of gold in February 1851 at Ophir, Victoria. Now, this wasn't actually the first time gold had been found in Australia, as it had already been discovered in 1823 at Fish River by James McBrien, in 1834 at the Monaro District by John Lotsky, in 1837 at Second Hoe by Thomas Potter McQueen, in 1839 in Hartley by Paweł Strzelecki. Sorry, but every time I read a Polish last name, it's impossible. No offense to all my Polish friends. Anyways, and all of these were in New South Wales. In 1840, more was discovered at Lefroy Van Diemen's Land. In 1841, at the Cox and Wollondilly Rivers in New South Wales by William Branwhite Clark. At Clunes in Victoria the same year. At Bundalong in Victoria in 1844. In the Mill Districts in New South Wales in 1845. In 1846 in Castanbull in South Australia. In 1847 in Victoria and Van Diemen's Land. And in 1848 at Wellington and Bathurst by William Tipple Smith in New South Wales. Now, right before this discovery, also several findings of gold were made in Victoria. In 1848 in the Pyrenees Range by Thomas Chapman, in 1849 at Wodi Yalowak River, and at 1850 in Clunes once again by William Campbell. So I think you got the message. There was a lot of gold in Australia, and a lot of it had already been discovered. But what made this so different? Well, to start off, the governments of Australia had discouraged spreading news of the discovery of gold in order to preserve order in the colonies that were still mostly full of prisoners. But after many people started leaving to participate in the California Gold Rush in 1848, and Edward Hargreaves being one of them, these policies were reversed in order to promote immigration. In March, gold had also been found at Franklinford and at Clunes in Victoria. But in April, John Lister and William Tom found 120 grams of gold at Ophir, and by May, the rush had begun with around 300 diggers by the 15th. In June, more gold was found at Sofala, New South Wales, and on the 30th, gold was found at Warrandyte, Victoria, by Louis John Michel, William Haberlin, James Furnival, James Melvin, James Heaton, and B. Gruning. 2 days later, Victoria separated from New South Wales, and that day, James Esmond found even more gold at Clunes. Clunes seems to really have a lot of gold. Anyway, that month, more gold was found in New South Wales at Bungonia, Hill End, Hargreaves, and Moruya. On the 20th, gold was found at Castlemaine, Victoria by Christopher Thomas Peters, and on August 8th, it was found at Boninyong, Victoria by Thomas Hiscock. On the 21st, even more gold was found at Ballarat, Victoria by John Dunlop and James Regan, and in September, gold was found at Bendigo, Victoria, but who found it was disputed between Stuart Gibson, Frederick Fenton, James Graham, Benjamin Bannister, Christian Athquick, Margaret Kennedy, Julia Farrell, John Drade, and John Kennedy. So that's 9 people all disputing who found the gold. So over the rest of the year in New South Wales, gold continued to be found at Orallin, Braidwood, Bells Point, Tuena, Parshish, Kula, Monaro, and Hanging Rock. Now also in Van Diemen's Land, there was lots of gold as well, being found at Fingal in 1851, at Managa in 1852, and in 1854 at Mount Harry. In South Australia, gold was found in 1852 at Ichunga by William Chapman, Thomas Hardiman, and Henry Hampton, and in Victoria at Amherst, Beechworth, Tarnagula, and Wedderburn in 1852, Stieglitz, Maldon, Hombush, Bright, and Statwell in 1853, Maryborough and St. Arnaud in 1854, St. Andrews and Mansfield in 1855, Ararat in 1856, Chiltern in 1858, Inglewood in 1859, and Rutherglen in 1860. And finally, in New South Wales, gold was discovered at Aidlong in 1852, Sunny Corner in 1854, Uralla in 1856, Bruley in 1857, Malgo in 1858, Kiander in 1859, and Young in 1860. So that is a lot of gold. Anyways, obviously all this gold brought many gold prospectors from around the world who later immigrated there for good. During the 1850s, 2% of the entire British Isles moved to Australia, but the immigrants were not exclusively British or even Europeans, with many coming from North America and China. This increased Victoria's population from 76,000 to 530,000 during that decade, while by 1857 New South Wales had 300,000. However, not everyone was happy with this, especially the miners who had bad working conditions and had to pay high fees. On October 7, 1854, a British miner named James Scobie was murdered at Ballarat, and 10 days later, between 1,000 and 10,000 miners gathered to protest the acquittal of James Bentley, who was suspected of being the murderer by a corrupt magistrate. On the 23rd, two more miners were arrested for burning the Eureka Hotel, which caused a mass meeting of 4,000 miners. On November 1st, 10,000 met and formed the Ballarat Reform League, but 7 more were arrested. Then they tried for the next weeks to negotiate with Commissioner Robert Reid and the Governor of Victoria, Charles Hotham, about the arrest of the miners accused of burning the hotel, but instead they sent in more police to monitor the miners. On November 28th, they were attacked by a crowd of miners, so the next day 12,000 miners decided to rebel, which caused the police to arrest 8 of them the following day for burning the mining licenses. On December 1st, they elected Peter Lalor as the river and promised to defend themselves and their rights. They adopted a flag bearing the Southern Cross as the new Australian flag, which was actually designed by a Canadian miner, Henry Ross Hay. Go Canada. Anyways, the next day, they began building a stockade out of wood and overturned carts. The next day, 276 soldiers and police commanded by Lieutenant General John Wellesley Thomas attacked the 190 miners, and after 10 minutes, the Eureka Rebellion was crushed, with 6 British having been killed and 22 to 60 miners being killed. 120 more were arrested, and 13 were tried, with Timothy Hayes, John Manning, John Phelan, James Beattie, William Molloy, Michael Tiohe, and Henry Reid from Ireland, James McPhee Campbell from Jamaica, Raffaello Carboni from Italy, Jacob Sorensen from Scotland, John Joseph from the United States, Jan Vanek from the Netherlands, and Thomas Dignam, who was the only Australian. However, they were found to be innocent. Now, although the rebellion failed, one of the rebels' goals, which was the expansion of democracy, was successful, and in 1855, all men over the age of 21 in South Australia could vote. In 1856, Victoria, Van Diemen's Land, now called Tasmania, and South Australia introduced a secret ballot allowing people to vote in private. The next year, Victoria allowed male suffrage. In 1858, so did New South Wales. Now, although the gold rush had died down, it was revived again on November 17, 1857, when gold was discovered by Maurice Charles O'Connell near the Fitzroy River in Queensland. By the following year, 15,000 people had arrived. This caused Queensland to separate from New South Wales on December 10, 1859. Meanwhile, back in Victoria by the early 1860s, the Eumerella Wars ended with a British victory, and between around 442 and 7,000 Gunditjmara had died. However, the Aboriginal Australians weren't the only people the Europeans attacked, with the anti-Chinese Lambic Flat riots breaking out on June 30, 1861, when between 2,000 and 3,000 European miners attacked 2,000 Chinese miners, destroying their tents, beating them, and stealing their stuff. When the police arrived, they arrested 3 of the leaders, which caused 1,000 miners to attack the police, who killed one of them, William Lupton. Now, in Queensland, in 1862, gold was found at Calliope, and more was found at Leyburn in 1863, at Boulder Combe Gorge and Pentland in 1865 by Richard Daintree, at Moornish, and at Rockhampton and Gympie by James Nash in 1867. Now, the last major exploration of Australia was in 1862, when John McDowell Stewart, a British exploration, left Carclew on October 23, 1861, along with John William Billiot, Stephen King, John Frew, William Patrick Old, John McGorry, Heath Nash, Francis William. I think I didn't put commas. So anyway, Heath Nash, Francis William Thringham, William Darton Keckwick, and Frederick George Waterhouse. He'd already gone on 5 expeditions across Australia. Although he'd been kicked by a horse in his head, which made him unconscious, trampled his right hand, dislocated 2 joints, and tore a nail from his finger, he just recovered and continued in 1862. They crossed Australia from south to north, arriving on July 24th, completing the first crossing of the island. Anyways, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I really don't know when I'll be back, but hopefully soon.